This time in the Magic Kitchen, we are joined by author Laura Tempest Zakroff.
I'm Leandra Witchwood.
And I'm Elise Wells.
And welcome to the Magic Kitchen podcast, where we talk about magic, kitchen witchcraft, herbs,
and everything in between.
The Magic Kitchen podcast is fully and independently funded by the Witchwood Tea House. So show us some support and head over to thewitchwoodteahouse.com to purchase some deliciously hand-blended loose leaf teas or one of my other botanical products. As a special thank you for your support, please use POD 15 at checkout to take 15% off of your next order. So without any further ado, let's get to the episode. Blessed be. So we're heading into fall and I'm so excited because remember when I was telling everybody that I have like tons of stuff in the works? Well, things are happening now.
Yeah, they are.
I can finally make announcements. So coming up really, really fast, I have a women's circle training that I'm offering. Yes, so this is... I got full body chills just talking about it and finally announcing it. So I'm offering an introductory price right now if you want to join the self-paced course, which will release on September 20th. It's $14.99 for right now. I mean, that's huge because you get 6 to 8 modules plus meditations plus a workbook. Like, it's huge. And so if you want to get in on that, I'll put links in the show notes for you to get on it, or you can just go to my website, leandrawitchwood.com. But it is a full certification course to lead your own women's circles in your area. And I run through my method of doing it. I run through how to facilitate. And then I give you all kinds of examples. And right now it's just the self-paced, but there will be an in-person option available later. Yay. And that one is like the big one. But in addition to that, I have the Empowered Modern Witches Summit that is hosted by Tanae Stewart. That one's coming up. I have the the Wealth and Witchery Summit hosted by Wendy Mata.
Yes.
That one's coming up.
Yeah, I'm in that one too.
Yes, you are. So those are two big. I mean, seriously, if you want to hear just hear different perspectives. This is the one thing. Okay, let me back up a little bit. So the one thing that I hear from most of my students, from my social media, from people who contact me directly, is that they're so overwhelmed by the contradictory information out there.
Yeah.
Seriously, witchcraft has no rules. So if you want to get a perspective, a broad perspective of how you can work your craft and make your craft your own. Like, seriously, attend these summits, pay for those passes so that you can get the recording, so you can go back and get these perspectives and take notes and incorporate these ideas and these practices and the experiences that all of these speakers bring.
Yeah.
Because it's going to enrich your path so much. That was the one advice my mentor gave me when I was first starting out. I was like 5 years into my path. I was so distracted. I was in with the wrong kind of coven. It was just a disaster. And the one thing she told me is stop and go explore. You can practice, sure, but go attend as many public rituals as you can. Go attend as many lectures as you can. Go read as many books as you can. Go practice with as many people as you can so that you can get a broader perspective of what works for you. And that was the best advice I ever got from anybody on this path. So seriously, attend these summits.
Yeah.
With that in mind, October, I will be hosting my own online summit with my own panel of witches and practitioners, shamans, magicians. It's so exciting. Elise will be part of that one too. And that one is on rooted rituals. So what I'm focusing this one on is those of you who are overwhelmed in your daily practice. I'm bringing this summit to you to help you anchor your daily practice so that you can get rid of that overwhelm, so you can get past the starting line and actually practice your craft every single day. Yeah. So that one is happening October 10th and 11th. I will have the links for this. I'll put everything on my links page so you have one place to go for it, because there, like I said, there's so much going on. Elise and I are doing a ton of stuff together. So we have the Wealth and Witchery Summit. We have the Empowered Modern Witches Summit, the Rooted Rituals Summit, the training and certification for women's circles. I'm at the end of this month, I will be at Temple Fest. And
which,
then,
like,
of course,
you can't skip past Temple Fest. Like, that is a massive achievement. It is so well deserved.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
I'm stunned that I got that they accepted me as a speaker. So I will be leading Sacred Shadows, which is one of my women's circles that I typically do just for women, but this will be all inclusive, where we dig into shadow work, where we do some guided journaling and guided meditations and that sort of thing. So that one's really excited. And I'm sorry if you didn't get your tickets to Temple Fest. They are sold out. They are not accepting any more attendees. And it's going to be a huge weekend. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And then that brings me to what we are doing together. Elise and I are doing something together in October.
Yes. So I don't think I've even announced this yet or anywhere. It'll be podcast first, I guess.
I haven't either. Yeah. Podcast first. You guys heard it first.
Yeah. That I'm coming back to the US again for a pretty decently long stay. I'm going to be able to attend some different conferences throughout the fall and into spring even, leading up to my retreat in Delphi next year. And so Leandra and I thought we would kick off my long stay in the beautiful US of A with an ancestor journey for Samhain.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Too.
I don't know how this has happened, but I don't think we've ever co-facilitated in real life. Like, we've been at each other's workshops and we've helped each other, but we've never actually done a journey together, like a ritual like this.
A ritual, an event together. Yeah. And this is truly an event. Like, those of you who want to get in on this, please sign up as soon as we have the information together and the link. Because we're doing it at the Serpent's Key, where I usually do my women's circles.
So this is in Hanover, Pennsylvania, everybody.
Yep. I kid you not.
Drive.
My women's circles, it definitely worth the drive. But my women's circles sell out before I can even promote them. I don't even get a chance to promote them because they're already sold out. So if you want to get in on this, please sign up as soon as you see that link, because I don't think the tickets are going to last long.
Yeah, and we are going to put the link in the show notes when it comes out, but it could come out midweek. So I know we'll both announce it in our communities first, because we really want to give patrons and community members that first call. So on my Patreon, you will get that first dibs, and in the Rebel Mystic community.
Yep.
And it's limited to, we think 20, we are pushing for 25. We're really pushing for that extra 5.
We want to get as many people as we can.
And it's going to also be a candle magic journey. And we're going to be co-creating oils. We're going to be co-creating. I'm bringing some herbs from Greece to use in incense. So especially if you have Greek ancestry, I think that'll be a special experience. And then we're building out extra additional resources. We want this to be an initiation for you into ancestor work. So if you've never in your life had the courage to reach out to your ancestors, this is for you. If you've reached out to your ancestors, but you just want more, it's just not the relationship you've dreamed of, this is for you. This is it. If you're just looking for something new, maybe ancestor work is all you do, but you really want it to be meaningful and you want to hear other people's experiences. This is for you. We are calling you in.
Yes, we are calling you in. And those of you who sign up, you will get a kit to go home with you.
Yeah.
So we're putting together so much stuff. It's amazing.
We're literally going to have
blown away.
An exclusive. Leandra is curating the most beautiful, exclusive digital portal for further rituals, further meditations, and the coolest part is actually a couple of bonus classes to dive into specifics on ritual in ancestor work. So this is like an unbelievable offer. As we started coming up with it, like we just got download after download for what it needs to look like. And I'm so excited. I'm just so excited to see who comes together for it and to meet you all and to hear your journeys.
I love sitting in circle in sacred space with other like-minded people, from beginners to experts. I love it. It's such, it's so fulfilling. Like it's a full body visceral experience, but then it's this energetic experience mingling into it. And it's this weaving of knowledge and power and ancestors. And I got full body chills. I can't.
Yeah. And when we
can't even articulate.
I know. And when we grow together, like in community, like when we have a community, whether that be a coven or simply sisterhood or a group of friends that you trust more than anything, when we grow within community and we see those folks around us growing on their journey and we get to support them and feel supported, it is the only way that we can grow. It really is.
Yes.
I heard this quote recently. They said, it is in sisterhood and it is in community that we are given permission to expand.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved that, because that's the real thing is we know that there's these possibilities. You're listening and you're hearing like, oh, I can do it. I can do anything. Okay, sure. What does that mean though?
Sure. Yeah.
It's in community that you find out what that means. And actually that brings me to the Sacred Wild community that I have begun. I wanted to give you some updates on this. So it is limited to 13 spaces. And as of recording, there are spots left. And we are going to have our first online group meeting September 1st. Time to be determined. I'm thinking noon Eastern. So, but it's a group that was growing together. So we will figure out a time and day that works for everybody. And that community includes my full course library, an unbelievable amount of content. It includes, I think that's like a $1,500 value right there. Then it includes an exclusive accountability group that we're going to put together on WhatsApp. So it works for every community, every country that you might be in. It's a free app. And we're also going to have the best part, which are these 2 90-minute group classes every month that are a chance to meet with me and grow. And the first class is going to be on air magic. Air magic is wildly underrated and kind of put out as like, oh, it's where you connect with wind or something. But air is our breath, y'all. Like that is how we're here. It is oxygen. It is communication with the plants. It is communication with the atmosphere and the cosmos. So we are really going to dive into the possibilities of air. And if you're on Instagram or Patreon, you saw my recent video. We had some crazy wildfires in Greece this week, which are put out as of recording this, which is before Sunday. They're already out. So it worked. But this ritual went out on my newsletter. If you still would like it, feel free to email me at lisa@seekingnumina.com. It really helps to quell the fires and send energy to the air spirits to calm things down, and the fire spirits to take a chill pill. Because it is just about energy, and collective connection to that energy is how we enact change. So the community is going to grow into what we need as we get into conversations. Yes. Maybe everybody's into pendulums, so we do a nice deep dive on pendulums, But I want to start, we need something to start with. So I thought air, direction of new beginnings, would just be perfect. And I am so excited to welcome you into that community. And if you have any questions at all, email me, elise@seekingnumina.com, or message me on Instagram. That is fine. I'm happy to chat. And I am also here to set up a nice 30-minute call with you and see if it really does fit for you, if it really is going to be the thing that gets you to the altar and gets you to commune with spirits in the way that you want. Because I learned the hard way. I was stubborn. I didn't want to join a coven. I didn't want to share my intimate spiritual experiences. I didn't want to ask advice. I thought I knew what was what. I thought I could just read books on my own, listen to podcasts on my own, keep a couple journals, and grow. And I did.
We've all been there.
But it took forever. It's like when I look back at how much I struggled on things without a mentor, without community, I just want to go back and shake myself. Because it was all that was missing. It was such a simple piece to slide into place. And I just resisted it for way too long. And I just don't want you to do that either. I want you to learn the easy way. and join community. Because there's plenty of challenges on the spiritual path. You don't need to make figuring out what to do next one of them.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And there's plenty of overwhelm waiting for you. And if you have somebody backing you up, it helps alleviate that.
Yeah.
It might still be there, but it's not as daunting. I think that's the best word I could come up with. Like going through my path when I would, and I'm still pretty much solitary, but I do practice with like coven members and that sort of thing. It's so much, I don't want to say better because it's not necessarily a better experience, but it's so much more clear. Things are less overwhelming and daunting. Like that feeling of like, oh my gosh, that's so much. And going back to the idea of like not knowing where to begin, how to begin, because there's so much information being thrown at you. You're following this person on Instagram, this person on Facebook, this person on TikTok, and they're all telling you different things and they all claim to be right.
Yeah.
Like that's where a mentorship really helps you because it helps put those things in perspective. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that might be right for that person, but maybe it's not right for you. What's right for you is out there. I think that's why my mentor gave me that advice. Go out there and explore. Go experience anything possible. Attend the lectures, attend the workshops, do the courses, do the group rituals, all of it. And I think in this day and age, when we have all these digital resources, like it's so easy there's no excuse for us not to be doing this right now, like to connect with each other and experience with one another. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We are here. We are so ready to receive you.
Absolutely.
Laura is a professional artist, author, performer, and modern traditional witch based in New England. She has created several best-selling books and decks, including Sigil Witchery, Weave the Liminal, and Anatomy of a Witch Oracle. Visit her at www.lauratempestzakroff.com. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
I think we're both excited about this interview.
Yeah. And we were saying before we got on, but we are technically here to talk about your latest book with Llewellyn, Gemini Witch. But I'm also excited to talk about your other books, especially Weave the Liminal. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
I feel like what makes your writing so different is that you, in all your books, Gemini Witch included, you remind us that witchcraft is a living tradition, not this like old dead thing that we're pulling out from the closet. Like it's actually happening and we're growing that tradition.
I think it's so important to realize, like, here we are living in modern society. Why are we, holding ourselves to something that was printed, in a dusty book, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, or written by somebody who didn't have your same life experience.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it empowers people to know that, like, just because something's older doesn't mean it's better.
Absolutely. Yeah. We always did it that way. Well, that was the first way we solved that problem. It's not usually the first solution is rarely the best solution. It's just the work.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's nothing wrong with tradition. Yeah.
Tradition is something we're creating every day too.
Right.
So like we think about especially the effects of the pandemic and how that's affected people's practices and how they, everyday practices to ritual practices. Like those are new traditions that in another 30 years, people are gonna be like, well, why did you do that? Like, well, they put hand sanitizer.
Yeah. Nobody wanted to get sick. No, and I love it. Like I love the new traditions because we can connect with more witches from all over the planet right from our webcam and our computer and do the things together and gain perspectives from one another. That's one thing I love the best is those new perspectives. The ones that make you go, I always thought of it this way, but the way you said that, the way you explain that, okay, I can see how I'm broadening myself. And I love that aspect. And not that you can't get that face to face, but I feel like it's more readily available to us now.
Right. And moving so much faster than when you think about, like, say, the 80s and 90s, where you'd send a letter into the magazine and then, anywhere from 3 to 6 months or a year later, it might show up, and then you write a response to the response,
Yes.
like, so, or online forums
Delay.
back in the day were like, can I get the IRC chat to connect? Like it's
Well, yeah, and like even tarot readings, like I remember when I first like I was reading tarot professionally, it was in person. And then the pandemic hit and I just stopped. And then it wasn't really until like a good year, almost 2 years into the pandemic that I was like, wait, I think I could keep doing this. And then I test the waters and it works. Like the fact, I feel like we're learning new things about the way energy transmutes
Oh, yeah.
because of necessity, like it really isn't diluted or dulled or harder to do a Zoom reading than it is to do an in-person reading, even to do readings that are recorded. That was a shock to me. I started doing that earlier this year in January, just as an option for people if they didn't want a face-to-face reading. And it's just as effective. It's wild.
Yeah, energy and people, it is great when you're in person, but sometimes, especially if you have different neurospicy tendencies, it's almost better not to do it in person. And you'd be like, oh, there's a little bit of space here. Yeah, I think my very first readings when I was learning tarot was actually via IRC because I didn't have really anybody to bounce things off of. So I'm like chatting, like, I pulled the 3 of Pentacles for you. This means, look in little book, type, and people were like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. You're like, well, I think now I will go try it on real people.
Yeah.
Which I did.
And I like that you brought up like neurodivergence too, because that's something like I'm neurodivergent. Like I'm always thinking about, in a way, I feel like a lot of the witches I meet tend to be, and it kind of makes sense because like we have to exist on a different wavelength as a witch, so we're already on a different wavelength. It's like, why not? But yeah, we're just there. But I just feel like it's so nice. Like when I host workshops, I host them online because I'm in Greece and witchcraft is like illegal here. So I do everything online, and most of my clients are either in the US. I have a few Australian students, some Canadians. It's great to have that diversity of like location anyway in a workshop because you have more experiences. But also I love like people will say, oh, I'm going to watch the recording because I'm having a bad mental health day. Like, great. Or they'll say, I'm going to join, but I'm going to keep my camera off. And that's great too. Like the accessibility is important, but also the way we can adapt it, like for personal accommodations, it's just incredible.
Yeah, that way people get more out of the experience instead of trying to fit them into this cookie cutter. Like it can only be this way. This is the only way to learn. This is the only way to read. Like that's not true. Our brains are so diverse and amazing. Just like find the best way that works for you. Like why can't we be open to that?
Yeah. And actually your tradition is called the modern tradition of witchcraft. Could you, right?
Yes.
Okay. Right, going from memory.
I'm like, wait, is that what it's called?
Yeah. Let me double check that.
Well, I feel like so many traditions play around with like how to get the word modern in there or how to keep the word tradition in there. Describe your practice a bit for us, why that label fits for you.
Well, it started way back in the day. No, it did. As I was, really discovering witchcraft, and especially at the time where, in the late 90s, the direction of learning witchcraft was you have to pick a nationality like Italian or Welsh or British or Celtic for Irish, whatever word they were going to put in front of it, plus Wicca or witchcraft. And coming from a really long line of people who like to sleep with other people from different cultures, like how do I do who do I pick? Well, how do you just choose one when there's such a tapestry of different people who have, come together to make me? And then I'm not living in those places. I'm living in, whether it's Rhode Island or California or Seattle. And so that means I have to adapt to where I'm at. So that was going to, all right, I'm going to look to these different traditions, right? The folklore and the practices, but I'm also going to recognize I am living today. I am living in this particular location at the moment. And so my practice needs to be fluid. It needs to be flexible, and it needs to also kind of be aware of the changing needs of society as well. So modern,
Yeah.
traditional. Boop.
Perfect.
Love it. I love it. Well, and that's where I started too, was like with these 90s books. And I am Greek Egyptian on my dad's side, which is like its own diaspora of like both Greek and Egyptian people. Yeah, you know, and yeah, I want to talk about belly dancing later. I couldn't not. But anyway, so there's that on my dad's side. First gen off the boat to the US guy. Then my mom's side, some of them had been there in the US since the 1600s. Some of them were Germans, fairly fresh off the boat. Like my great grandmother's second language was English. Like, how exactly? How am I supposed to pick? And there's too much pressure to pick labels as it is. I think it's almost redundant. Like, once you're really practicing and you meet other people practicing, I've been in circle with heathens. I've been in circle with, Norse heathens. I've been in circle with Wiccans, like capital W Gardnerians, like I'm neither of those things, but like we did some beautiful magic together.
Right. That's the commonality of the magical practitioner and what experiences and what we're working for. I think that's so most important today. I see so many folks who are new to the path, not necessarily younger people, but that does tend to be the heavier part of the trend. Is I have to figure out, am I green witch? Am I this witch? Am I do that? I'm going to specialize in this. Like, no.
Relax.
Yeah, relax.
Take a breath.
Okay, because you're going to change again in 6 months.
Yes. Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah. I think people also put this pressure on them, like, oh, I thought this was my passion. And talking about, the idea of passions, like they usually just started as an interest. So I always instruct my students, my community members, like, what are you interested in? Go explore that. If that feels good to you, explore it some more. If that feels good to you, do it some more. But don't lose yourself in this identity crisis where I have to be a green witch. I have to be a hearth and home witch. I have to be a crystal witch. I have to be, I don't know, whatever, insert title here.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious where that's going to go, like, because right now the big buzzwords are what you said, like green witch, hearth and home, poison path. I see that one more and more.
Oh yeah.
Which it's like, great. Like, I think that's cool. It's especially, it kind of says something about your style of magic too. It's like, yeah, I'm not afraid of the baneful workings. It's like, I'm a bad witch, like, it's a cool label, but it's also like, they still are also green witches. And I would probably venture to say they're probably a bit of a hearth witch too. Because, they're alone and they're with their plants. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see, like, it's funny too, because the word solitary, like people used to be like, I am a solitary witch. And that was enough, But now I would say, especially since COVID, it's like 90% of witches, if not more, are solitary and like happy to stay that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the like independent. We're independent.
Yeah.
Witches, but then at the same time, it's like, if you learn again that commonality, you can convene with other folks, either at a festival or another small group. And it doesn't have to be this, I have to go find a coven. Like, no. Get slow down, slow. There's your idea of what a coven is. Then there's the actuality. These are two very different things. You probably do not want this. You want like-minded people together. That doesn't mean you have to be oath-bound to them. What a concept.
Right. Yes, yeah. And I think that speaks to like the age of Aquarius we're officially rooting in now, because we're supposed to be tribally oriented, which witchcraft is its own, you don't have to be in a coven to say you're a tribally minded witch. Like, just being in this community, we're all of the same community, same tribe. But then I also think we're getting less rigid with these distinctions, so we can just show up at the Baltimore reclaiming rituals. Like, that was my favorite thing to do when I lived in Baltimore, is when I could, I would just go. I wasn't initiated there or anything. I didn't actually know anybody most of the time either, but I had such a blast. It's so much fun to just to feel out other energies and get to put yours in the ring, and it's just a good time. And people shouldn't feel like they have to overly commit, I think, to want to try magic with others.
Or that they can only do one thing. You can only be this. You can be everything, and that's okay. Don't don't pigeonhole yourself.
It's not just me being a Gemini.
No.
Do all the things.
No. Yeah. Well, and like this path is so varied. Like I don't work with, any Scandinavian deities or anything, but I have tickets for a lecture on the Sami mythology.
Mm.
Like I just like learning more stuff and being a part of being aware of what I'm hearing if somebody does mention it later, or, like I think there's such value in that. And then who knows what'll stick? You never know. Maybe I'll learn something about some connection Finland has with Russia. And then I do more research, and actually in Greece, they did the same thing. It's just crazy. Like the world's not that big.
It's really not.
No. And there are only so many solutions to doing certain things. So it's neat to see where those common threads come together, where, oh, we're doing this practice here, they call it this, but it's very similar to treat this issue over here, right? And just because, it's not like people are copying each other. There's only so many ways that you
to
can,
do it.
with the resources that we have as human beings. Like, you've got hands, you've got feet. All right, go.
Yeah.
You may have noticed that here at the Magic Kitchen podcast, we don't have sponsored ads. That's because this is a fully listener-supported show. We do what we do for you, dear listener, and when you join my magical living community on Patreon, you're supporting all the time and energy that goes into setting up podcast interviews, writing articles and rituals, my paranormal mystery novel, and all that I do. And in exchange, you're getting over 10 exclusive journal prompts, rituals, witch tip videos, meditations, and more each month. If you love this podcast, consider joining my magical space. I can't wait to meet you and be an even bigger part of your magical journey. Go to patreon.com/Elise Wells or follow the link in the show notes.
Sense of humor. How does that play in your practice? For me, I have to have a sense of humor. I have to be able to laugh at myself, especially in ritual when I'm like, what am I doing? How important is having a sense of humor to you?
I should really make it like the first tenet of
nice.
Number one, I think it's true actually. No, number one is know thyself, which is that's also knowing the universe. And the universe is going to push you in ways that are gonna be like, come on, laugh. That was funny. That was funny. No, it was. No, you're taking this too seriously.
Yes.
Wow. And when you're in what I think humor brings to magic is it's a relaxed state, it's an imaginative state. And when you are in that place for imagination to happen, then more exciting things, more connection happens versus here is my script. I have to say these words in exactly this order at this time, raise this dagger, do this thing. Like, that's going through the motions. Is that truly experiencing union with deities, spirits, yourselves, the people you've gathered with, or are you stuck to a script? It's very similar to dance where, people are like, I'm going to do this choreography down to absolutely every cue, but are you feeling the music? Are you telling the story? Are you allowing that, oops, you just tripped on your skirt. How do you make that into a better moment? Or instead of being like, I am horrified, everything is ruined, do over. You can't.
Yeah.
That would totally be me tripping over stuff. Yes.
I like people are like, you're so graceful. I'm like, I am such a klutz.
Yeah, same here. Well, and it brings me back to a memory of a Beltane ritual we did with our coven. And I literally tripped over my skirt and I did a somersault and then stood up and go, ta-da! Made it part of the ritual. This is what we're doing. And we all busted up laughing, but it lightened the mood and it played into that Beltane energy, that playful, buoyant energy, I guess.
The way to raise the bar, because now everyone's like, we're going to have to do a somersault. You're like,
do the Willy Wonka
magic.
This is our next trick. Everybody learn it.
Well, and life's not that serious, it's a fairly common belief, I think, in our paths that this isn't our only go. We'll get to come back on this plane. We'll even get to decide when we come back. And I believe that on the other side, before we come back, we kind of put some stuff in place. Like we choose where we're going to be reincarnated. I think we choose our parents. I think we choose our, you know, a good bit of the main stuff, those pivotal moments in our lives. And I think knowing that can give us that perfect love and perfect trust on our path, but also can remind us that, like, well, if it doesn't go right this time, you know, like you got another couple million years maybe if you need to figure that out. Maybe even other planets, you know? Who am I to say? I don't know.
Who knows?
Experience this as a star.
Yeah. So Gemini nature has always been hard for me personally to connect with. What would you say to people? And actually, after reading this book, I do feel a lot more connected to it and more like, oh, that's that in that person I know who's a Gemini. You know, like I was able to like click a lot of things together. But what would you say to someone who's like, Gemini, don't get it. Doesn't make sense to me. Who are they? They're a mystery.
We contain multitudes.
Yeah.
I think we are always exploring. We're on the quest for information. We're always thinking about stuff and wanting to explore, either taking in information or sharing information, which means that we are constantly kind of updating our hardware and software to like, oh, I now see it this way. Now I'm going to change the stance until I get more information on this, instead of being like super hard fast. This is the only way. And I think a lot of people read that as being duplicitous, where it's more like we're saying like we're just being fluid. This is the better solution. And so why put sunk cost into being something that I now see as wrong or not a good fit and moving into something else.
Honestly, that's one of the things I love about Gemini. My best friend is Gemini, and I feel like I can talk about ideas with her in detail, even controversial ones or ones that I would have not have entertained before. Like she brings me ideas, I bring her ideas, and we just bounce it off each other. So we can sit there and have conversations for hours about just obscure things that nobody else would get. Somebody else looking on be like, why are you talking about this? But yeah, the whole updating the hardware and software type thing. And I feed off of that. I love it. I love being challenged mentally, intellectually, and, that's one thing that I love teaching my students is challenge your beliefs, find that conviction, question it, get to that bottom line, why, and what leads you to this conclusion. Yes. And I feel like talking with Gemini, people with strong Gemini leanings, even in their chart, like I feel like that really allows for that intellectual ping pong ball, the game to happen. I love it.
So whereas those kids were like, but why? Why? Tell me more.
The best kind of kids, honestly. I'm a Taurus, but that was me as a kid. And it's my Leo rising too. And my Pisces moon. There's a lot of like interaction with intellectualism, I feel like, in my chart, which got me in that why business. But yeah, that's so true about Geminis. Like the main Geminis in my life that are healed, because I will say unhealed Geminis, and I found that's the issue. Is like if they're healed, all's well. If they haven't done any shadow work, and these are non-witches, I will put that disclaimer. All my witch Gemini friends, or even spiritually leaning Gemini friends, because also I've noticed that Geminis, in my experience, even the healed ones, they don't like to pick a label. Like they're like, oh, I'm spiritual. And I'm like, yeah, but you have an altar. Wouldn't you say you're maybe a witch? They're like, sure. Like a label. I'm like, all right, that works.
Why choose one word? I've got 30.
Yeah. Exactly. They're like, I'm showing up. I'm like, that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. Show up.
What was my original question? Oh, so how can we best, as anyone with any amount of Gemini in our chart, how can we utilize Gemini energy when it's in the full moon, full moon in Gemini or a new moon in Gemini? Like, what does that signal to us?
That's a great question. So when you're looking at like what kind of motion should I go forward with, right? Am I considering the roundness, the possibilities, right? What are my options in here instead of just immediately going for one thing? Especially, so my partner's a Taurus. And he is definitely like,
We're pretty cool, but
yeah, I absolutely adore him. But sometimes I just be like, wait, hold on. Why are you doing this? It's like, well, and I'm like, but they did that. And he's like, oh, words go this way, you know? And so, but I'm like, not, you're doing this wrong. It's like, tell me why.
Why?
Have you thought about this way? And that's where I think the Gemini full moon comes in. Is like, all right, if I'm going to do a ritual, if I'm going to do a working, am I looking at this in 360? Am I looking at the various viewpoints, or am I only seeing this as a small section? Because we think about the full moon, it is the full luminosity, right? We're seeing everything exposed. So why not take that as an opportunity to consider the hidden parts and the obvious parts? Even considering, we think, oh, this is clearly obvious, but why is it obvious? Why is this the choice, right? Is it just because other people accepted it, or is it truly the solution? So kind of dwelling in that, I feel like it's the priestess card, the priestess, right? The high
that says it.
Yeah, you're between the two pillars, behind the pomegranate curtain. Explore the mystery and allow it. Thinking about exploring the mystery is a space different than immediately charging into doing the thing, right? And there's nothing wrong with thinking about it.
I also see it as Gemini, full moon, new moon, knowing yourself, going into know thyself. Since Gemini is so clear in communication and so curious, I feel like that's where I always seem to land when Gemini energy is connected with the moon. And just, I have to go within, I have to journal, I have to do my shadow work. And that has helped me on my path realize, like, well, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? What is my hope? What is my outcome? What is my hope to achieve? And I feel like Gemini energy is really pivotal in that.
Have all the thoughts, and goes back to, what is the meaning? What is the purpose? Again, just digging a little bit deeper and collect the facts. Collect all of your useless facts. They're not so useless, right? We're going to say they're going to come in handy at that dinner party 6 years
someday.
From now.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's how I think.
I forgot.
Yeah. Well, and like I take notes on everything I read, like even a fiction novel. If I'm like reading it and they mention like a word I don't know, I will look it up, and then I'll go on a rabbit hole of like when it was first used. And then before you know it, I'm like halfway down the OED, Oxford English Dictionary. And I'm like, like I love those research rabbit holes, and they do come in handy at dinner parties.
They do.
You just never know when someone's going to ask you when foyer was first introduced to English. Mid 18th century is the answer.
I love that you know that.
There's a handy story about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Because anyway. Yeah, this is what happens in my mind. So yeah, Gemini are really great to talk to in that regard. I will say too, like I feel like most of the friends I've had that are Gemini, I did meet through intellectual means. Now that you mention that, through classes or like, even like online lecture series that I did. So,
yeah, it's harder for if you think more like at food events, because you're like, do I eat? Do I talk? Do I eat? Do I talk? So we're like, you're so quiet. I'm like, I need to get my sustenance.
Yeah.
Very, very focused on my task.
All the food.
Yeah, opportunities to talk there. I was like, I also, because of my background, I was like, I have to talk with my hands. So how do I talk with a glass of wine and my charcuterie?
Yeah.
Classes, talking much better without the food.
No food.
Yeah.
No food, no wine. Hey there, witches. Did you know that there's an entire community out there dedicated to you and your journey? The Rebel Mystic community is a space where I offer my decades of knowledge and experience to witches just like you. I do this through live events, monthly mentoring, monthly rituals, a book club, and other resources like workbook pages and meditations. There is even a complete self-paced course library you can access. Check the link in the show notes to learn more about this community and how to become a member. Blessed be.
So, I, as a Greek Egyptian woman, we have belly dancing pretty deep in our culture on both sides. In Greek, we call it teftilteri, and it's the same thing. Like at my wedding, that like my Greek wedding, like my big fat Greek wedding, we had a belly dancer, and people were like, what? Like all the Greeks were like, woo, like doing the, you've seen it, you know, the clapping, but like, you know, some of our American family came and they were like kind of appalled. They were like, is this for after hours? Is this the bachelor party gone wrong? Like, I find belly dancing like insanely spiritual, so moving. So I wanted to ask you, like, how does dance and performance and non-performance, like just for you or just for your deity's performance, how does that play into your spiritual practice?
Well, when I was really coming out as a witch, and developing like, what does it mean for me to be a witch? And also working with a group. At the same time, I was discovering belly dance. So it's a sort of, it's a tree that ended up converging. It's like, I'm the same tree. Here we go. Here's all of our branches. So as it worked out, most of the folks in that group all started taking belly dance classes together. And they're like, well, this is cool. Let's bring it back to what we're trying to figure out in ritual, right? And so those really early day rituals in the late 90s and early O's were very music and movement oriented. And that's always stuck, like I say, still happening today, because regardless of specific movements or gender or, you know, all these different things, moving your body in ritual, regardless of ability, is an incredible way to connect to yourself, to each other, and to the divine. So it's not like, are you perfectly executing this hip drop, right? Is it happening to a ballady rhythm? Like those are important things to know when you are teaching dance and you're showcasing that specific kind of dance. But it was really a gateway to understanding movement in a more fluid way, a more accepting way, and also kind of really tapping into the music as devotional, as energetic, as ecstatic, you know, these different ways of moving, different ways of breathing, different ways of creating percussion, all alter the ritual state. So
Yeah.
it started there. And I've studied all the, the whole region and beyond of, North African dance and Turkish dance and Greek dance and the Slavic trance dances and the Italian trance dances and other variations of that. And it's fascinating as you can look at the rhythms, because we only have so many rhythms. You get more interesting rhythms, particularly in the Slavic countries. And then, of course, when you go into different patterns of like into India, Pakistan, etc., and to Romani, you still get a sense of how the rhythms change the body. When you have a 6/8 versus a 2/4 or 4/4 or 7/8 or 10/8, like these all move the body in different ways. So if you listen and you feel, you respond to it. And you find that, again, I feel like our theme of today is common threads.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, and that's so true. Like 6/8 time to me has like an instantly spiritual, like I just like triggered into like my trance state and it goes back really, like if I'm being totally honest, I think it goes back to like not even my experience learning Greek dancing as a kid or any of that, which was all in 6/8, but Renaissance fairs. The transcendent experience of like being yourself fully and openly, because before I came out of the broom closet, I was way more comfortable at like those spaces than anywhere else. I think that's a common thread and for many people's path. I think like Renaissance fairs get us out of our shell. Fairy fests, all of the above.
Oh yeah, all of it.
And I would go like, yeah, and it's accepting, and you just feel like, why wouldn't you be yourself when you're there? It's so empowering. And that music, like I would find those bands there, and then I'd find them at the time on YouTube or wherever I could, and then I would get their CDs even, and then like that changed so much for me. And I think that's it was a holdup in my spiritual practice of using dance because I'm not good at it. Like, I know I don't look good dancing. and I know, like, but it doesn't matter, you know, like you're doing it for the movement and the way that it connects your body to spirit, and less for like, I mean, I think people who look good, that's probably awesome for them. Like, it probably feels good to know you look good, but if you're like me and you don't, like, it can still be so enriching, I think.
I think you dig into so many things our society places upon us, especially about how certain bodies are supposed to move or allowed to move. And, you know, teaching dance for so many years is the thing I say again and again is I want you to think about how this feels, not about how it looks. Especially because we have so many different body types and different ways of moving. And, you know, if you're looking at a teacher who's got like an amazing chest and is super tiny and then bouncing around, and you're like, you know, if you're flat chested, you're like, how am I'm lifting. I'm just not going to get that perk, you know, and you're just like, my body's wrong. It's like, no, your body's not wrong. Your body's wonderful. Your body's doing the best it can. It just doesn't have those, which are stacked into a hardwire bra, you know, like,
Yeah.
and, you know, when we relax and we think about how it feels, I would guarantee that your dance is beautiful.
Yes.
Oh,
I would concur.
I only do it alone in my room, so.
Well, and how much of our cultural influences our ritual too, and our idea of ritual and how it should look and feel. And yeah, I'm totally on board with that.
I was like, all right, how many hours do we have?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and belly dancing, like when I've seen it in the US or when I've seen it in like performative spaces, like in Dubai one time. Actually, I've done this twice, but they do like these desert adventures you can do, and they're very touristy, and like they always have a belly dancer, but like she's got fake tits, so we know who she's there for right away, and she's always really skinny, and she's usually like Russian or Ukrainian, or like, you know, she's not really doing like Arabic style dancing,
right?
And I think that's the image a lot of people have of belly dancing, whereas like the belly dancers I've really enjoyed in my life. And kudos, actually, there was a restaurant in Reading, Pennsylvania, shout out to Aladdin's, that would have belly dancers. And they always were really like authentic performers. But belly dancers aren't supposed to be like, you know, washboard abs, you know, fake boobs. Like it's supposed to be a celebration of fertility. Like it goes back it has such ancient roots in what witchcraft also has ancient roots in, is these perspectives. So,
well, and think about the women who were thought to be fertile and the most desirable. They had hips, they had rolls, they, you know, they weren't hard washboard abs like you said.
And it's when you go throughout, you know, North Africa and the Arabian Peninsula and so forth, right, throughout the whole region, is whether you're looking, you know, what spirituality you're looking at, what particular religious path. So whether it's done together or it's happening in different rooms, dance is for everybody. It's for the young, it's for the old, it's for all shapes, it's all bodies. And when you have the commercialization, if you track, like, that's another thing we can talk about for 6 hours. When you look at the commercialization, particularly starting in Egypt, and then how it moved into Hollywood and those perceptions in the United States, is it became so much a performance sellable type of thing, right? And even in Europe and vaudeville and that type of stuff there. But, you know, there's so many discussions, has been for decades in the belly dance community, of like, well, the restaurant job, which back in the day you could make amazing money as a restaurant dancer, especially like in Los Angeles or New York. Like I have teachers like, I made $1,000 a night in tips and whatever, because in that time in the 70s and 80s, you had, you know, the Saudi Arabians coming in, you had all those folks, you had a real flush of money, they wanted a piece of the culture, and the dancers had to be excellent. Right. So they wanted to see the authentic dance. They wanted that piece of home there. And then you get into this, you know, oh, we're, excuse the language, but we're feeding the white people. So we're going to have the fantasy image, you know, and the food's going to get brought down a bit.
Yep.
And we're going to not have
no spice
stage lights
anymore.
or the, Yeah, the live band is gone, it's recorded, and it's any pretty young thing that looks good in a costume who can sell a fantasy versus somebody who understands the music, understands the motions. That's not to say that it's all restaurant dance, because I know some amazing restaurant dancers and of that cabaret quality and quantity. But most places are like, oh, you want to dance for the evening? I'll give you some free falafel. Like, it's gone from,
Yeah.
and people
I'll
like,
feed you.
yeah, like you're lucky if you get that now. Like, people are like backstabbing for $25 to $50 a night. Like, that's shitty.
It is. It absolutely is.
And people see that it was like, for a while, that was the highest thing you could achieve in the realm of belly dance, was to be the house dancer at, whatever, fill in the blank, at the Casbah. And but does that elevate the art? Is it give dance to the people? Is it really doing honor to the cultures that's come from and to the person who's dancing it?
Yeah.
No, and you can look at the current state of things and be like, well, that explains a lot.
Yeah.
So what's? Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to tack on to the idea of not looking good while you're dancing. In my coven, what I teach is we dance, but it's for a purpose. Mm-hmm. So we incorporate sigil magic into the dance. So with our toes, we're drawing a sigil, but it's in movement. Mm-hmm. And it can be complicated. It can be clumsy. But the purpose is you're on the ground in either in the sand or the dirt, and you have drawn your sigil with your toe while moving your body. So however that plays out. And I think that speaks to the idea that we have to look good. We have to have the rock hard abs. We have to, wear all the jingly things and make all kinds of noise and sparkles and that sort of thing. But really, when we get down to the spiritual aspect of it, what's the purpose of it? Why are we doing it? Not that we look good doing it, not that we, can video ourselves and put it on TikTok or YouTube or whatever and gain a bunch of followers. That's not what this practice is about. And knowing why we believe that we have to look good is important. Yeah, I appreciate you touching on that, the whole history of it.
And all the years I've been teaching dance, and especially my favorite thing is to teach movement to magical practitioners. Like, it's come full circle where I'm just like, I'm not here to give you a choreography and go. Like, I want people to be embodied. And I have yet to, every single room of people, whether it's a small little group of 5 or like 200 people at a conference, it's all beautiful. It's all amazing. And it's so potent and powerful. And whether that is somebody who is seated, right, because they are in a chair, or they don't have that mobility, even what they're doing with their hands or their breath or their eyebrows, like whatever point that they can move, they're still there and connected and part of it. And I think that's, it comes back to, with what I write about in Anatomy of a Witch, is your body is your most important and powerful magical tool.
Yeah. Yeah. In my tradition, it is, and I think in a lot of traditions, it's represented as the pentagram. Like, the pentagram is our body. We are the pentagram. It's all the elements. It's that connection to spirit. Yeah, exactly. When we hold our arms out. Yeah. And I think it's like so inherent. And like you said, you don't have to move. Actually, so my coven that I was initiated through, it's an eclectic fairy tradition coven. And I was the youngest in my coven by like 30 years. Like, we had crone energy and then little maid in me. So it was very interesting. And we didn't do a lot of movement, like our maypole was like pretty limited, pretty small. Some years we didn't do it at all. One year we did one in a cup, like maypole in a cup. I don't know if anyone's seen that on social media before. It's very cute, but I always, oh, that's cute. Oh, there's so many ways. Yeah, you could use like a pretzel stick. Oh, I got ideas. But yeah, there's so much movement you can do without doing movement. Like, we used to do theatrical performances too. I used to teach theater, so I wrote one for the autumn equinox, and we did one, we made little masks, but like, most people were seated, but it worked. Like, the movement can be small. It doesn't have to be, big. As fun as that would be, it's still my goal in life to dance the spiral dance. I've never been at a function where anyone's done it. So one day I would really like to do that.
Just don't be at the end.
No. No.
Okay, noted.
Or the beginning.
What?
Yeah, be in the middle somewhere. Yeah. Highly
What
recommend it.
happens at the end? What happens at the end?
Yeah, you get kind of
Physics is what happens at the
yes,
end.
physics.
You get whipped. Whew, okay.
So if
All
you
right,
like that, be
noted.
at the end.
Middle. Okay.
Generally in the middle. Tends to be better. Yeah.
So I feel like it would be really remiss not to speak about sigils while we've got you here in the Magic Kitchen.
Yes.
Because your book, Sigil Witchery, I was always, to be honest, I was always kind of like, sigils must not be for me, because anytime you Google them, it's like this like, Kabbalistic inspired, which to me, I hear patriarchal inspired. They're like, oh, it comes down from the Golden Dawn. And all I hear is, oh, it comes down from rapists. Like, that's all I hear when I hear Golden Dawn. Like, I know that sounds so rude, but like, it's just,
Well.
if the shoe fits. And so I've always like written off sigils. And then your book changed my life.
Yeah,
and I still
love
haven't
this
got
book.
Sigil Alchemy. I have to admit, it's very high on my list to get.
I'm showing my book right now, and it is like I don't know, bent, and it's been well
Yeah.
used.
Well
I love
loved.
it. It's well
and
loved.
mine's,
Yes.
mine's a Kindle copy, but it has so many highlights and things that I actually did print them out and put them in my Book of Shadows, my highlights, because I was like, this is just stuff I need on hand. So yeah, can't recommend it enough. But how did you get to your method of sigil making? Like, because it is different. It feels like sigil witchery for the real modern witch, the modern traditional witch, perhaps we might say.
So I've been practicing art for most of my life. My earliest memories go back to art. Been in formal art school since 3. Because I actually wasn't very coordinated. That's a whole other funny story. But so they're like, art school is safer than movement. Yeah, here you go. Proof that I'm a klutz. And so with that, and being neurospicy is how I get into trance and how I tell stories. And there's so much of a narrative happening with every mark and movement and things going together. So over decades, as I kind of crafted this style of how I create magical symbols, and it was just very intuitive. Like, this is what makes sense. I'm putting these shapes because they have this energy to them in this placement, this color, and that pulls the piece together. And it wasn't until I was teaching a class on visual alchemy, which is about the intersection of art and magic, and showing some of my own work through that. Like, there's historical examples of art and magic, and then because I can talk about how I do it personally, that someone's like, well, what's all that stuff that's going on over there? I'm like, well, that's a sigil. And like, that doesn't look like a sigil I've seen. I'm like, well, this is what I do. This is my magical symbols. And they're like, well, cool. How do you do it? So I'm like, well, that's interesting, because this is something, it's been this internal narrative for decades. How do I do it? What is going on in my head when I'm crafting these? And so I deconstructed my method, and like, all right, well, I know there's an intention to what's going on here. It's got a goal, it's got a purpose. It has these certain elements incorporated into it because it needs to have this outcome. And then its placement or usage, right, brings it into being. And so you can use the word activate, but people think lots of things about the word activate. And so that's how Sigil Witchery came about, is my deconstructing of my own methods so that other people could use it and access it. As I have to say too, coming from the 90s, chaos magic was all the rage. And I was like, I should like this. I should like this. And every time I encounter like the books or the writing or the individuals, I'm like,
the individuals, that was what got me.
Yeah, like, I think I need a bigger stick. I need, I'm like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense to my brain for magic. And I think that's also, for so many people as witches, right? We tend to be very much based in sympathetic magic, which is our first spells are, I'm going to take this candle, I'm going to take these ingredients, I'm going to put these things together. And that's essentially what's happening in Sigil Witchery is you're going to do a spell, you gather your ingredients because you know what your outcome is going to be. And so it's a constructive method versus a deconstructive method, which is the letter sentence. I'm going to say
Yeah.
doer. Oh, I have better words, but it's still in the first cup of tea here.
Yeah.
Which is only one of Austin Osman Spare's many methods for crafting sigils. But that's the one that's been popularized, which I think would probably have him turning over in his grave, but that's a whole other story. Okay. Or as an artist, taking a structure and being like, well, I'm just going to draw around in this little box or in this little circle. I'm like, but what's the meaning? What's the meaning? What's the purpose? What is going to help me get to that goal? Because I think my brain needs to better visualize my end result rather than deconstructing it. So for my brain, construction, building works better than obliterating.
Yeah, well, me too. And also, like, I feel like without sigils, I didn't know what I was missing. Like your book changed my magical practice forever because now anytime I use a candle, I'm going to carve a little sigil in there that I'm going to make because I feel empowered to make my own because of your books. And I feel like that's what you've given so much. Like, I don't think I mentioned this, but Weave the Liminal is the very first book on every single reading list for every workshop I've hosted. And I don't need it to be. I'm always like, oh, well, but you know what? Laura put that in the best terms. So it's going back on the top. Like, it just happens that way. But I feel like, and I feel like Sigil Witchery is the same. It's just, it's the peak of its field of study.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's so empowering.
Like what you said, like for me, it empowered me to allow to break out of that. Oh, this is how you should do sigils. This is how they should look. It helped me break out of it. Cause I use, like I said, in body magic, we use sigils in dance, but I also use them when I'm making magical medicines. So when I'm brewing that new tea, when I'm, brewing that tincture or the elixir or whatever it is that I'm making, the sigil is part of that process. And it is what infuses that medicine, that herbal concoction with my intention. So it was important to understand that I didn't have to do it this way. This was the only way to do it. I had creative license.
You can do the thing.
And in the kitchen and like it's the smallest ways that I find myself being like, well, I can add a sigil to that. Why not? And it just improves things.
I think that's what I hear a lot is it gives people that permission to be creative. And it's like, not that I want to be doling out permission to anybody, but if it gives people that freedom to be themselves and to realize that just because one method is put out there doesn't mean, again, it's a solution and that's going to work for very specific brains, perhaps. Won't get into a whole like, is it effective or not?
Right.
But my favorite quote of all time so far about Sigil Witchery though is Christopher Hughes.
We love him. We just had him on for our Christmas special.
Yes, he's awesome.
Absolutely adore him. And I was at Paganicon quite a few years ago where he's like, I got your book. And I figured, you know what? I'm going to see if I can upgrade to first class on my plane using a sigil. And I want to see this, that. And so he did it and it over. He's like, this shit works.
It does.
Oh my gosh. That's so great. I can like hear him saying
the best. Yes, I can too. That's awesome.
I'm like, that's the highest praise I can get. Hashtag this shit works. Like,
yeah. Put a sticker on if they do a re-release, put a little like an as seen on TV type sticker, but like Christopher Hughes approved.
This just where you need to add your blurb to the cover. Actually we'll have to bleep it slightly, but
yeah.
That's great.
It works. Because what's happening is you're visualizing it. Magic starts with thought. All magic, hopefully, starts with thought. And how you can get to a better sense of clarity for it, to prepare yourself, right? To influence yourself, the world around you, other people, spirits, deities, to be in communion with that. Yeah, it starts with that thought. And it starts with what are those ingredients and what are those things coming together versus something that doesn't have that much meaning for you, or, feels like I have to get permission from something else or another system in order for this to work. Like, yes, there are very specific kinds of magic where those are the systems and this is what you do to get those results. But that's also a very specific type of personality.
Right.
That's not my personality.
Not mine either.
Nope.
I tried to be that personality. It didn't work out so well.
Well, and at the end of the day, like, it all comes down to, like, in a way, just psychology, that we have to grow. We have to learn that extrinsic motivations, extrinsic factors are less important than intrinsic ones. They matter less. And they're also less important because they are by design not in your control, because they're not you.
Right.
So if we can accept intrinsic motivation as our main motivating factor, we can accept that we have the power to do anything we want, because we're fully in control of that, of ourselves. It's so powerful. And I think that's what witchcraft really does for people. And you say this in Weave the Liminal too, that witchcraft isn't a religion, it's a practice that can be tied to a religion, but it is in its own, it's a tool in a sense, not to diminish it, of course, but it's something you can do. It's practical. And I think that's what it is for us, is it's something we can find within ourselves. And so that allows us to find all the other missing pieces that we perceive in our lives also within ourselves.
100%. It's about kind of our identifying and creating our own dogma, if you will, versus internalizing somebody else's, which again, where you might not have the why are we doing this? How are we doing this? Versus part of this practice, part of my daily practice is about tending to my own personal deity, which is me.
Yes.
It begins there. And then once you're doing a good job at worshiping at your own temple.
Yeah.
I like that.
Maintenance,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Doing your own personal maintenance of your own temple. And then you can start to consider the other influences out there, which is a very simplistic way of a really lot of complex ideas. But
yeah. Oh, just a lifetime or two of things learned.
Do you hear the call of working more deeply with nature and land spirits, but you're just not sure how to answer? Are you tired of feeling stagnant, overwhelmed, and unconfident in your magic? If you are ready to learn exactly how to listen to the land, if you're committed to making great strides in your spiritual practice, I invite you to embrace the sacred wild with me. I am currently taking students for the Path of the Sacred Wild, a new community space where you will connect with other practitioners and get direct guidance from me in 2 monthly classes, an exclusive group chat, a monthly personal tarot reading, and my full course library. This is limited to only 13 spots, and they are filling up fast. Email me or DM me on Instagram with any questions or to set up a free guidance call. I am waiting to work with you.
Do you have any projects you're working on that you want to share with?
Yes. So in fall of 2024, so soon after this comes out, is the Sigil Witchery Oracle is making its way into the world. Yes.
Oh, I'm really excited. Oh, I'm super excited.
I was like,
yeah.
Because I don't even know if I was like this level of excited for my other two. Like, I love my other oracles.
Yeah.
But as a tool, I think this is what I'm most excited about, is this is going to be for so many different uses, because the Sigil Witchery Oracle is about connecting to the marks, the shapes, the movements, which is often the most difficult thing for a lot of people, especially if you're not so right-brained. You're like, I have this word. What do you mean I have to connect it to a shape or, a line or a mark? You can use the Oracle to assign those things. Or even better is, like, as you're flipping these cards, go, wait, no, this card I pulled isn't the word the shape that I want to go with this word. I know it's going to be this instead, right? So you're helping to build your own internal vocabulary of shapes and marks and movements, but you can also use them for creating movements, right? To create meditations, to be like, all right, well, I've pulled the zigzag. How do I use that in my daily practice today to invigorate or, to do what I need to accomplish? So it can be used for drawing, it can be used for dancing, it can be used for divination, it can be used for magic. I'm like, it's going to be
This is exciting. Yes.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so, so cool. Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, and it's going to be smaller too. Let's see if I got a little sample. I have a little. This is great. I can share with you all since nobody else is going to see.
Yeah, nobody will see it.
Yeah.
So,
oh, cool.
It's got.
I love the rainbow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So the text is going to be a little different as a sample, but so it's a smaller card.
Okay.
It's good for quick little shuffling, and it's like you don't need a big card for something like this. It's just the shape. And so there's 60 cards altogether.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah,
cool. Oh my gosh.
That's going to be the next deck I get.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny because I started working with Oracle decks this year. My first ever one, the Green Witch's Oracle by Erin Murphy Hiscock. And I've been loving it. I've been doing a daily draw. I'm looking at it. That's why I keep turning my head.
Like, hi!
And yeah. And it's been so fun. And I'm like, oh, this is such a different tool than tarot. Like I've been reading tarot for like 12 years or so at this point. But Oracle is it's light. It's really light. And it's nice to connect quickly. Like I'm not a morning person, so it's been really nice to use Oracle in the morning, for example.
And you've got something that's got a good system that's been created with thought. It can be really, really powerful. This is one of my rants. Is like, Oracle, such a big word.
Yeah.
It's a dumpster. So if it's on fire, because people are like, oh, here's a pretty picture, here's a word, we're gonna smash these things together. But like when things are considered, and I'm sure the deck that you're talking about, it's considered, it's thoughtful. These things are put together in a way that is there to stimulate your brain, to stimulate spirit, and to get those creative juices flowing. So yeah, it's nice to kind of break out and try a different little system that doesn't require you to be like, but have you consulted my major arcana or minor arcana? How's it synced? Oh, it came upside down. You were screwed.
Yeah.
Tarot has a personality. Oracles have a personality too, but tarot has a very specific personality, I think.
I like it.
Yeah, it's like show up or don't show up. Like it's a more serious. I don't know. Serious might not be the word. Demanding, perhaps.
Yeah. It's kind of the PhD program, and I think the Oracle's like, maybe some field experience, maybe it's fine. Come explore with this. It's all fluid.
Nice.
So tell our listeners where they can connect with you in person or online, because I don't know if you're doing any classes, courses, etc.
So the easiest way is through the website, the mothership website, which is lauratempestzakroff.com, which when this comes out too will be a brand new website that is combining all of my sites into one, because for a while I had this site and this site and this site and this site, and just too many websites. So they're all going to converge into one amazing place. So that way you can find out about my art, dance, books, other witchy things, and then find all my social media on there. And things coming up towards the end of the year. I'm still working on that. So I'll check out my events and classes, which will have its own little tab on the website, because I'm right now thinking about the first half of the year.
Yeah, I know. We record these so far out. It's so hard. Awesome. We'll put that website in the show notes so everybody will see that too.
Yes. Yeah. This has been wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for talking with us.
My pleasure. This was a lot of fun. And anytime. Come.
Merry meet.
Merry part. And merry meet again.
Thank you for joining us on the Magic Kitchen podcast. Please visit my website, leandrawitchwood.com, for news, information, and more episodes.
I'm Elise Wells, and I can be found at Seeking Numina on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and seekingNumina.com. That's Seeking, Numina.